Welcome to NASPA Tonight. I'm the host of NASPA Tonight, Josh Greenway. This is the show where we talk about Scrabble. I'm going to be joined tonight by my very special guest, Mark Abadi, the Business Insider reporter, who does a great job promoting the game. Before we get to Mark, I have a few headlines to share with all of you. Number one, this past week, we really only had one big tournament in action. That was Saratoga Springs. This was a tournament that I attended and did not do that well at. But I want to give congratulations to Jackson Smylie, who formerly had an association with this show, but is on an extended break. Also, congrats to Rashid in Collins and to Carol McDonald. I realized her part of the graphic is a little bit covered, but congratulations to Carol for winning the TWL B or TWL Light division there. In terms of, let's see, also associated with this is Kevin Gauthier. Had his chance to step up as lead director in Saratoga Springs. He shared his experience on Facebook. He did a great job. I was there for that. He had some challenging calls, but he certainly enjoyed himself. Another big news item in Scrabble this week was Ulu announced a new way of updating lexicon. So if you use Ulu on your phone like I do, it's an iPhone only app. I definitely encourage you to check it out. You can take a look at Seth Lipkin's Facebook profile to find the instructions on how to use it, but it really couldn't be simpler. There have been some changes to the word list. We're now, instead of using TWL, the word list, I guess is what it was an acronym for. We're now using the NASPA word list. And this can be accessed right through the app. So you don't have to hit somebody up to get them to send you a link. So anyway, it's really fantastic. If you don't use this tool and you have an iPhone, you should definitely check it out. And kudos to not only Seth, but NASPA for making this whole process easier for everybody. The other thing that I wanted to cover tonight, oh, good, the graphic here is a little bit covered as well, is Jackson Smylie's white hot run. That's what that is supposed to say. Here, we'll move me so we can see the bottom of that sentence, because without the last part of it, it looks like a weird headline. So I want to say congratulations to Jackson, who's really been killing it out there on the tournament circuit. I have an update here. Number one, I thought it would be interesting to take a look. Since Nationals, all of these tournaments in main events anyway, Jackson has cashed. So that's what, about 11 tournaments in a row, something like that. I think it's 12. Actually, Nationals appears to be cut off on the top, but he finished 6th place in Nationals. And then you see 5th place in Niagara, 3rd place in Ottawa, and then some of the first places start coming. Stratford, Caledon, Toronto Match Play, Oshawa, and the last 2 weeks in a row, both Kingston and Saratoga Springs. So he gave me a little bit of an update here that since Nationals, this guy's collected $6,815 in prize money. So that'll give you some indication of exactly, Christina Lemoyne. Those are 5 fire emojis. If you're a fan of Jackson Smylie like I am, feel free to tag him in the comments with a way to go or congrats. To be picking up almost $7,000 in prize money over 6 months is pretty incredible. Now, probably half of that has been spent in expenses. So even still, I think that speaks to where we are in terms of prize money, that I don't think even Jackson, who is going to be able to get by on about $500 a month clear profit on those things. So obviously, one of the things we want to do as a community is work on ways to get that money up. So that is why we are going to talk to tonight's guest, who is doing a great job of delivering the message out there. He's someone who's in the media. He works for a very large media company. He's got a big audience, and he puts out this great Scrabble content. So I want everyone to help me in welcoming our special guest. Let me get a lower third up here so we can identify everybody. Here he is, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Abadi. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. So I was just talking there a little bit about prize money and how getting the word out about our game is one of the most critical missions that there is in today's Scrabble community. I think we have a fantastic community, but it's still relatively small. And I was interested. I want to get into sort of your whole backstory. But mostly I'm interested. You have this job working for Business Insider. How did you come to be putting out this great Scrabble content?
Yeah, well, at Business Insider, they always kind of let us write about things that we're really passionate about. And so for the past year, I've been on what's known as the strategy team, which is kind of our fancy way of saying the careers section. But basically, we kind of give advice for interviews and careers and like habits to become successful and productive. And so my editor was really enthusiastic when she found out that I was passionate about Scrabble to start writing about that too, and like ways that you can kind of optimize everything. And so writing about Scrabble strategy definitely fit under that umbrella.
Fantastic. So let's broaden the scope here. Let's widen the lens here a little bit, Mark. You definitely have some fans in chat as Christina Lemoyne is yelling in all caps, Abadi. So and I also want to say, I don't think I said it before. We were in a little bit of a rush. We were trying to get some connection issues worked out. I just want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. We've got a bunch of people. If you're watching on, you can be watching this on a number of different places. You can be watching it on my Facebook page, on the NASPA Facebook group, on the NASPA Facebook page. I think we're also live in WESPA and Scrabble Snippets. But the best place to be if you want to engage in chat is on my personal page. So that's just a note to the fans out there. But my first question for you, Mark, is how did you get started with Scrabble?
Well, I've always been, I guess you could say, obsessed with word games since I was little. I grew up in a game-playing family. I was always into anagramming and like puzzle books that had anagrams in them. I grew up playing Upwards a little bit. I never really could hang with my parents in Scrabble until I was around 14 or 15 years old when I was starting out high school. And I would lose to them every time, until one day we had a Scrabble dictionary and I was playing with it. Like before it was my turn, I would take a peek. I learned AA that way, stuff like that. And the day that we played with the dictionary was the first time I ever beat my mom and my dad. So that kind of lit the fire and kind of inspired me to go online and learn obscure words. From there, I discovered the book Word Freak and found out about the local Scrabble scene in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I lived. And so I started going to that, and I played my first tournament when I was a junior in high school.
Gotcha. Now, one of the things when we were talking before the show that you talked about is how much you tend to focus on definitions and etymology. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But tell me about how this plays into your study habits and how it affects your success in the competitive world.
Yeah, so it does make me something of an outlier in the Scrabble community in that I come to the game from the language side. I love words and I love language in all aspects. And part of that is learning definitions and learning, the ways that words are used. So Scrabble has been a really fun way to learn new words. I don't think that aspect of competitive Scrabble is really played up enough. Obviously you have to make sacrifices when you're studying to play at the highest levels. But a lot of times knowing the definitions and the parts of speech of words have really helped in tournaments, and I can kind of make inferences based on what I know about a word already.
Gotcha. So we talked a little bit about sort of your kitchen table play when you were younger. How did you? I want to look at the journey from North Carolina to New York City. So tell me about where did you go to school and what did you study?
So I went to school at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels. They do have a great Scrabble scene up there, the whole Triangle region. So I would, I was like a freshman, so I didn't have a car or anything, but I would make the walk to Carborough, North Carolina. It was about a 30-minute walk once a week to the Open Eye Cafe, where I would play people like Kurt Davies and Ron McCown, Liz Gotlin, a lot of really great Scrabble players. I studied linguistics in college. I majored in linguistics, and I did a lot of journalism as well. I wrote for my school newspaper. My senior year, I had a column about linguistics. I would try to find interesting ways to apply language to like everyday life that your average college kid would pay attention to. And then eventually after college, I got a Fulbright scholarship, so I went to Malaysia to teach English for a couple years.
Oh, wow.
I did play a couple tournaments in Malaysia. I dipped my toes in the Collins world a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then came back and moved to New York, and I've been writing pretty much the whole time since then.
Fantastic. How long have you been at Business Insider?
I've been at Business Insider for about 3 years, maybe 3 years and change, because I started as an intern. I've been doing kind of a grab bag of roles, but for the past year, I've been on the strategy team writing. And then actually as of this week, today was my second day, I became the editor of our freelance section.
Fantastic. So what does that mean? How has your role changed from, you talked about the strategy section being more about kind of developing content or the creator side, right? So what does it look like now with your new role?
So the subject matter is pretty much the same, only this time I'm going to be assigning stories to our freelance writers in much of the same areas, careers, business, personal finance, stuff like that. And then I'll be personally editing the stories and publishing them myself. And it's a nice change of pace for me because I've been wanting to get over to the editing side.
Fantastic. Now, I think it's also important. I mean, I talked about that Business Insider is a really large media company, but we went back and forth on this in sort of the prep for the show. And just for people that don't know out there, like, it's recently become the #1 most read business news site in America, ahead of Wall Street Journal, ahead of CNBC, and combined with Insider, which I for some reason I'm way more familiar with Business Insider than just Insider. But the two of them together, the second most news read website in America, again, ahead of New York Times, Fox News, really only behind CNN. So it's got to be interesting. I used to work for a very large media company up in Canada. Now, I wasn't doing the news. I was writing radio commercials and working with advertisers. But what is it like? Do you work like in a giant, office with hundreds of people? What is that? What does your day-to-day look like?
Well, there are many of us. Yeah, our headquarters is here in New York, although we do have offices all around the world. Yeah. My team is relatively small, so maybe it's about a dozen or so people. It's not, yeah, it's very, it's a young company in general, so the average age is pretty low. But it's great. It's a nice, fun environment, and I'm just surrounded by really passionate people who write about the most interesting subjects. Like, I mean, I write about Scrabble. There are people that write about, like cycling and like political language and like job interview, like questions, stuff like that. Just such a wide array of interests, and it speaks to the level of talent over there.
Fantastic. Now let's take a look at a couple of the articles that you've written.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the one that really caught fire, I believe. This is I played in the biggest Scrabble tournament in the country, and it was nothing like the game you grew up playing. I always love headlines and the science behind headlines. But I think
you have it down to a science of
BI. For sure. So I think you were saying this has done over 200,000 web views. Is that right?
That's correct.
Gotcha. And this talks about really a fantastic finish for you. I think I asked you this question already. This was at New Orleans Nationals. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. It was my first Nationals, and it was also my first tournament at all in 6 years.
Oh, wow. And you cashed. That's the beautiful part about this story.
I definitely wasn't expecting that, but yeah, I
did. Very nice. And if people read this story, why should people read this story? A lot of our audience here, we're a Scrabble insider show, right? No pun intended. But we take an inside look at the Scrabble world. So why do you think people from the Scrabble world would be interested to read this article?
If you're a serious Scrabble player, I don't think you're going to learn a lot, as far as any Scrabble strategies will go. But I do think I'm really passionate about sharing my love for the game to outsiders. I guess that's why I'm the insider. And so hopefully people will kind of catch on to the things that non-Scrabble players gravitate towards, So it's not going to, there's so many things that we take for granted when we play Scrabble, like how unbelievably elaborate like our setups are and just how deep we dive into the game. Mm-hmm. And it's like another language to people who have never seen it before. So I just tried to write as if people barely even know the rules of Scrabble.
Gotcha. Well, and I think as well, listen, there are a lot of people in our community who have yet to make it to a nationals. So I think giving them a look at what that looks like. I'm always involved in our social coverage of nationals, and we've talked a lot, or we've talked a little bit about an idea that Ben Schoenbrunn brought to the table about maybe trying, like we do kind of a broad coverage of nationals, and maybe trying one year to do a real narrow look at nationals, like follow one person around and it's their first nationals and do a real kind of POV look at what nationals looks like. Or maybe we do that in addition to the stuff that we regularly do. But anything that looks at that kind of experience is fantastic.
I definitely tried to capture like the spectacle aspect of it. Just the main photo right there taken by Patty Hawker is just, it's so incredible to see so many people gathered to play this game. Because before I went to this tournament, the biggest, I'd never gone to a tournament anywhere near that size. So it was just really like you step into the room and the only sound you hear is the tiles shaking, and it just like sends shivers through your body. It's such a cool experience.
Fantastic. And just a reminder to everybody out there, there are going to be lots of social media mentions about this. You want to get in on, if you're going to go to nationals this year, you want to book by Thursday of this week to get your free NASPA Nationals t-shirt. So, that's a thing. And so let's move on to the next article. Actually, before we do, I saw a couple of fun comments in the thing. As soon as I said, why would people from our community enjoy reading the article, Christina Lemoyne said, I'm not a big reader. And Dan Wachtel, if you're still with us, Dan, the reason we tagged you, it's because it's your birthday. And we're going to do a birthday segment.
Oh, happy birthday.
To the end of the show. Yeah, happy birthday to Dan. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is Is this your most recent Scrabble article? I feel like I just came across this one.
Yeah, I think that's my most recent one.
Okay. So after playing thousands of games, you're convinced Scrabble blows words with friends out of the water for 3 clear reasons. Again, the headline science is amazing. And
draws you in, right?
It certainly does. So I definitely read all of that. Now, are you comfortable? I mean, people should really go to the thing to read it. Are you comfortable revealing 2 of the 3 big, clear reasons for why Scrabble blows words with friends out of the water?
Oh, I'm more than comfortable. This has been in the back of my mind, like this article, for years, because I play Words with Friends probably more than I play the Scrabble app. Just because more of my friends are on it. Mm-hmm. And if you catch me in a bar and get enough drinks in, I'll just like talk about this for hours on end. So I'm really glad that you brought this one up. But the first reason that I tell people that Scrabble is superior to Words with Friends is the distribution of the premium squares on the board. It just inherently makes Scrabble fairer, in my opinion. The way that the double word scores, the double letter scores, and triples are all laid out make it so that whenever one person plays something, it inherently opens up something up for their opponent. And it's usually things of like equal value. So in Scrabble, you can hit a triple word score and a double letter at the same time, or a triple letter and a double word. Whereas you can see on the Words with Friends board right there, in the left corner, you can hit the orange triple word and the green triple letter on the same play. They're only 4 squares apart. So if you play a word like quiz, that's going to be worth like 100 something points, when in Scrabble that would be way, way less. And it just is like, it increases the luck factor so much that it really doesn't make it fun for people who try really hard to hone their Scrabble skills.
Well, speaking of the picture, I'm always curious, is this a stock photo or is this a game you're actually playing? I can't read the names.
No, that's not mine. That is like, I'm pretty sure that Zynga, the company that makes Words with Friends, like released that as a promotional image. Why they would choose 7 vowels?
I know, yeah.
I always think every like Scrabble's app, or when you look at like the cover of the board game, like there's always words on the board. And I really wonder how much thought goes into the exact words they put.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at the players' racks like, oh, I wonder what words they can make. I was always wondering if they're going to slip in like a crazy 115-point word that only the experts will see, but it usually isn't the case.
I do the same thing at my desk at work. I've got one of the old style deluxe boards that I found in a vintage shop or whatever. And I keep that on there. And I look at the racks all the time and think the exact same thing. Okay, so we covered one of the reasons. What's the second reason? The second clear reason why Scrabble blows Words with Friends out of the water.
Yeah, just the dictionaries are a little different from what I recall. Right. That was one of my biggest pet peeves is that, I mean, a word game can have a different dictionary. Like, you can choose whatever words you want and you kind of have to play by the rules. But at least if you're going to choose a dictionary, like make it have consistent rules. So like what I love about Scrabble, there's so many obscure words, but they do follow patterns generally. So you can put an S at the end of virtually every noun, and you can add an ing to virtually every verb. But in Words with Friends, for whatever reason, they couldn't copy the dictionary for copyright reasons.
Yeah.
But they made it so that certain words, like only the singular is acceptable, like the word dongle. Like you have a dongle that you stick into your computer.
Yep.
You can play dongle, but you cannot attach an S. You can't play dongles. And I've lost games because I'm like playing someone and I'm looking 2 steps ahead and thinking, oh, like I could play this word possibly. And I found out later that, that word's actually not acceptable in this dictionary. And I'm like, well, my opponent's not going to care if I complain like, oh, this word should be good in Scrabble. Like that doesn't make a difference to someone who's not a Scrabble player. So it looks like sour grapes. When in reality, it's like, oh man, I just want this dictionary to have consistent rules.
Right, absolutely. Well, and speaking of dictionaries, we talked about the update earlier. And again, I just want to encourage everybody, if you've got the Ulu app or you don't have it yet, make sure you download that. It's super easy. We've got the changeover happening in like 3 days or something to the new dictionary.
Man, it's coming quick.
That's right. Get on those few thousand words, although only really a couple hundred to take a look at.
In the New York Scrabble Club, we just started, for the past couple of weeks, we've been using the new words. Although Joel Sherman allowed us to keep a cheat sheet by our sides, but
gotcha. So
far I've only managed to play owie. I haven't gotten any like subtweet or biz jets. I haven't been able to wrangle any of those yet.
Well, even internet, right? That's new in this update.
Yeah, internet is a new one, which a lot of people are surprised by.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think journalists will appreciate that because in the AP, the Associated Press style book, like we were required to capitalize internet until like 2013 or something crazy like that.
Okay.
Like the dictionary always takes a few years to catch up to everyday language, so you can give them a break on that one.
For sure. Okay, so we're going to save the third clear reason. We'll get people. We'll get people over to that article. You should definitely. What's the easiest way to find you? Like if I Google Mark Abadi, Business Insider, am I going to get to your author page?
Yeah, if you just Google Mark Abadi, then my author page will be the first thing you see, and then you can just get a long list of all the articles I've ever written.
Nice. So that's some good SEO. All right, let's go to, this is another article. I'm a nationally ranked Scrabble player, and I have a simple trick that can take your game to new heights. Is this the power of 2-letter words, or is it a different simple trick?
I think that simple trick, there are many simple tricks.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure this one, if I'm not mistaken, was about, I think it was about like dividing your letters or trying to isolate prefixes and suffixes, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I think that's okay. I think that's right.
Yeah, like the concept of a bingo is so foreign to anybody who's not like a regular Scrabble player. Like for a lot of people, playing a bingo is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. But like whenever I'm playing with new players, I try to show them like, no, all you have to do is break down, like try to find the common things in every rack. So find your INGs, find your RE, find your out. And then, if you can find an ING, all you have to do is find a 4-letter verb in your other 4 letters, and all of a sudden you turn 20 points into 77 points.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take a quick look at, I always like to do cross-table deep dives. This isn't quite centered on the screen, but I think we can see most of it. So you have listen, 1531. You're sitting on your peak rating. 1531 is pretty good after like 17 events. So tell us about, you have a couple of defined periods here. One from sort of 07 to 11, and then the other from 17 to 18, with no tournaments yet played in 2019, I noticed.
No, not yet. I'm waiting to study a little bit more.
Gotcha. So why the break in the tournament record?
So I graduated college in 2012, and then immediately, so I did my Fulbright scholarship in Malaysia, which was 2 years long. I was teaching English there. Mm-hmm. I think if you somehow go to like the Malaysian rankings, I'm pretty sure I'm technically ranked because I did 2 tournaments there that were Collins tournaments.
Okay.
That was like, basically I arrived in Malaysia. I was at the Fulbright orientation with 74 strangers from around the country who were also on my program. And I was like, after about a week, I was thinking, wait a second, Malaysia is a huge Scrabble country. Like this never occurred to me before. And I'm like, wait, Nigel lives in Malaysia. There's got to be something going on for the 2 more weeks that I'm in the capital city. So I Googled it, and it turned out that there was a tournament like the next week in a city just outside of the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. So I went knowing zero columns whatsoever. I memorized like the 2s.
Yes.
And then a few 3s. And then that's like all I could muster in 1 week. So I went there. I played in the intermediate division out of 3. So I played in Division 2.
Yeah.
I didn't realize when I got there that like 99, there was like probably like 100 people or like 75 plus people in that division. And all of them, except for like 4, were middle school students. So like, so they were super intimidated. 1, because I was like in my 20s, and 2, because I was a native English speaker.
Yes.
But I was like, no, you guys probably know way more words than I do. Trust me, because I'm just coming into this. I didn't tell them this, but like I'm just only doing TWL here. I ended up not winning. I lost to. This is one of the most humbling stories of my Scrabble career. Is that I was cruising through this tournament. It was like 7 games, and I think I was 4-0. And then I played a game against the number 1 seed, who was not a kid. He was an older man. He was a Malay man, and he spoke very, very little English. Like we were trying to make small talk before the game. He couldn't keep up. He couldn't really have the most simple of conversations. And then we played. He was challenging words that to me were really common, like scampi, like shrimp scampi or something like that. Yeah. But it was a word that he had never seen before, and he challenged it. But then he was busting out the most obscure words I had ever seen, and he ended up beating me by like 150. And then because we were still first place and second place, we played again, and he destroyed me again. And I was like, this is basically what Scrabble is all about, right? Like, you don't need to be an English speaker to succeed at this game. And it was really cool because I was, an English teacher, and it was just like, look at this avenue that these people are approaching the English language from. And it was just really inspiring to see.
Gotcha. Nice.
Anyway, so yeah, I moved to New York, and then it was a few years before I did another tournament, and that was nationals.
I see. Well, whenever I think of Malaysia, like obviously there's the, like you said, the Nigel connection, but certainly Michael Tang and the recent Alchemist Cup comes to mind, and more of that stuff to come. It sounds like it must have been a hell of an experience to spend that time overseas.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and I did a lot of word games in my classes. I played a lot of bananagrams.
Yeah,
I played a lot of categories, and they even have their own variation of Scrabble in the Malay language called sahaba, which is the word for friend. And the difference, it's really interesting. It's basically the same exact game as Scrabble, except for some of the tiles have 2 letters on them with a slash mark, like a B and an H or something. And you get to choose which of the letters you want it to be. And it can be a different letter if it's intersecting both ways. So there's a lot of strategy involved in that game too.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, so 2019, no tournaments yet. I think there's a Manhattan tournament coming up this weekend. We'll cover that when we get to upcoming tournaments. But certainly there's a lot of Scrabble around. So I think people would like to see you out there on the circuit.
Oh, I'll be back. Don't worry about that.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's. I think what we're going to do now is let's wrap up the interview. I want to say thanks very much for coming on, and keep up the great work promoting the game and coming up with fantastic Scrabble headlines. I always think about how can we do that with some of our nationals coverage. And really, thanks for
Scrabble Insider. Let's optimize this.
Hilarious. Okay, very good. Well, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you out there on the circuit.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
All right. So now what we're going to do is get to a couple of very quick segments. We are going to talk about some upcoming tournaments. The tournament schedule is packed these days. This weekend, we have the Pacific Coast Open. David Pearl out there really setting a stake in the ground for West Coast Scrabble. I think he's up to 43 participants, something like that. Then we have March Gladness. If you watched last week, I still haven't quite figured out what March Madness is, but it's a 2-day tournament. It's in Ohio, I think. I could be wrong. Manhattan, as I just mentioned, all three of those are this weekend coming up. We've got Austin, which is up over 60 people or 65 people, something like that. We've got Charlottesville. Obviously, I forgot the E on this graphic. Those are happening the following weekend. Then we've got Poughkeepsie and Purple and Green. So both of those tournaments are sitting in the high 40s for participants. I may end up in Poughkeepsie. We'll see what happens. But I also know a lot of people are going to be at Purple and Green. So those are upcoming tournaments. I encourage everybody to sign up for a tournament because directors are working hard for you. And now we'll wrap up the show with what is my favorite part of the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, but I especially want to thank our birthday babies out there. I'm going to read a quick list of names. Abdul Khan, these are people whose birthday were in the last week. So Abdul, Wayne Kelly, Colin Northmore, Nikhil Sonenja, Desiree Gomes, Dan Wachtel, who was in the comments earlier, the lovely Jillian Bathgate, happy birthday to her, Barry Muskovich, Brian Bailey, the aforementioned Michael Tang. Michael, happy birthday to you. Brian Bailey. Oh, I already mentioned Brian. That's what happens when I start improvising on the list as I look away from it. Weira Sangsit, I think is the way that's pronounced. John O'Loughlin, Antoinette Seeley, and our really special birthday babies, those who are celebrating a birthday today. Eliza Lieberman, happy birthday to you. And Khalid Javed, happy birthday to you. So that's it. That is another episode of NASPA Tonight in the books. Thanks very much for joining me. We'll be back next week with another guest and more news about Scrabble. Get out there, sign up for Nationals, get your free Scrabble t-shirt, go download the latest lexicon out of Ulu, and sign up for a local Scrabble tournament. As I said before, directors are working hard for your enjoyment. Thanks, everybody. Happy Scrabbling.